Oh, there, and it's darker. Let me see. That helps a little bit, but it's getting ready to rain. Please rains. And a drought, so I'm looking forward to the rain. So, and yes, I did get my hair done. I mean, it needed it to be done. That's somewhat sort of tied into today's quote, but anyway. So it's like where did it all go? But anyway, um, so today's quote comes, as I said, from a very unexpected source. In this particular case, believe it or not, Willie Nelson. Now, some of you, I hope, well, I think most of you probably at least have heard the name, but country singer, and he's really old. I'm not sure how old he is, but he's older than I am, which means he's really old. But anyway, the quote I think is appropriate for all of us, and it goes to show that anybody could come up with a quote. So as I said in the introduction, if anybody's got anything, share with me. I'm perfectly happy to share your quote too. But today's quote: once you replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts, you'll start having positive results. Very profound, very simple, and most of you might think that that comes from some kind of a philosophy PhD, but it's come from somebody who's quite well known and will admit that he's used drugs when he was younger. But he still recognizes the fact that what happens with our lives tends to be directly a result of what our thoughts are about. Now, I said something about my hair, and this isn't a small case, and it is like I didn't cut it for a while because, again, I had cataract surgery, which some of you are aware of, and that was earlier this year. But I didn't want to get my hair done because I was thinking, I got the cataracts, I'm taking the medication, I got to go and do this, that, and the other. I've got a lot of hair. I don't know if you can tell over the video or anything else like that, but I got a lot of hair. Um, and I wasn't wanting to have it cut and have all those little hairs flying all over the place and getting the hair in my eye. So it was just easier to pull it back. You didn't see it when I was doing the recordings, but basically that's what I would do is just pull it back so it would stay out of my eyes. But in a sense, as I'm looking at the quote, I realized that I was having this negative thought that if I had done something like that I needed to do, get my hair cut, I was going to have some kind of a problem with it because I was thinking negatively about that. And so once I realized that, wait a minute, I'm in a sense asking for trouble, so to speak, because I'm looking for it. Does this make sense? Now, you're going to say, well, I don't look for trouble, it just finds me. But if you think about what you're saying when you say something like that, you say things to sound as if it's going to come to you. Now, I've used this example before, and I'll use it again, probably a couple 100,000 times. But it goes with, say, like you start up in the morning, and maybe the alarm doesn't go off, and then the coffee pot's not working because it forgot to turn it on or some such thing like that. When you get up in the morning and something goes wrong, and you see one or two things go wrong, and then you get in the idea this is going to be a bad day. The problem is then you put something into your head that this is going to be a bad day. And humans, as we tend to be, will more likely start to look for the negative things because we want to confirm that we already decided it was going to be a bad day. So we're looking for the things to prove us right. Heaven forbid that we say it's going to be a bad day and it turned out to be good. That we don't like that. It doesn't. I think about it. It seems strange, but think about it. It's really actually true more often than not. If you say it's going to be a bad day, you kind of like the pleasure, in a sense, of being able to say, I told you it was going to be a bad day, and let me tell you how bad it was. To be able to say that I told you it was going to be a bad day and it turned out to be wonderful tends not to be something that we're really comfortable with. So that when you're thinking about saying, okay, this is going to happen, I'm going to get hair in my eyes and it's going to bother the cataracts and it's going to mess me up. And it doesn't, in a sense, make sense as I'm telling you right now. But at the moment when I'm thinking those things, it's enough of a negative thought to put me in a particular direction to dictate what I do next, which continues on, in a sense, with a series of negative thoughts. Going back to the coffee pot and the alarm not going off in the morning. Maybe the alarm doesn't go off in the morning and the coffee pot doesn't go and all that queer stuff. You can still take a look at it and say, okay, so the morning didn't start out, but the rest of the day is going to be great. Because if you don't do that, what happens is you start looking for the negative aspects of everything that could go wrong with you. So even though that there are good things that happen, you're not paying attention to them. You're just going to pay attention to those negative aspects because you want to have reinforcement for the concept that you've already said that it's going to be a bad day. Right? Does this make sense? So if you start looking at it from a more positive standpoint, okay, so this morning was lousy. Okay, the morning's done. It's over. The afternoon's going to be good. And start to look for the positive. You will see the positive. Yes, there'll be negative. I'm not going to say that everything's going to go beautiful and sparkle and the sun's going to come out. Negative things will happen, but if you don't look for them to pile them on to collect them, so to speak, you give up that little collection and you start collecting the positive, the good things. They may be small. Somebody smiled. Somebody cracked a joke that you like. Something happened. It might be a little small thing, but if you start looking at the small things, you'll start looking at more of them. And it's not so much that you're going to have a lot of big positive things, but to some degree, in many of our days, it's better to have 100 small positive things than to have two big things. And, it doesn't seem quite in proportion to everything else. Does this make sense? So that if you start looking at the positive thoughts, you'll start looking at the positive thoughts, you'll start looking at more positive thoughts, and you'll start looking at more positive thoughts. And so you get that positivity in your head. And then when you start looking at options of whatever you've got a choice to make, whether it's for dinner or whatever, you're going to make a choice, and you'll start looking at things with a slightly different perspective than when you're looking at things from a negative perspective. And you're more likely to choose something more positive. So let's just suppose you've had that bad day, you've been looking at negative things, it's time for dinner. It's much easier to look at stuff and open the refrigerator and say, well, gee, this has been a lousy day. I might as well just stuff myself with fat stuff anyway. And then you go off and have a very unhealthy meal, which you're going to regret tomorrow when you wake up and get on the scale. You follow me? If you're already feeling negative, if things are not going well, when you have to make a choice about something, you're sort of saying, oh, well, too bad. It's already lousy. Why make it? Nothing else is going to be good today. So, and you continue to make negative choices. If you've had a good day, and you open that refrigerator and stare and say, okay, things have been going good. You might want to say cheat a little bit, or do something that may say like be slightly off your diet, but you're not going to go and blow the whole thing. You may be more likely inclined to stay with your diet in the first place and eat something healthy. Because you've got the positive attitudes, you're looking at the idea that things are going to turn out well. And so you're looking more at positive outcomes than you are looking at negative outcomes. It's really difficult to open that refrigerator and decide you're going to stuff yourself with everything fattening and everything high caloric and everything totally unhealthy if you've been having a good day. It's easier to do that when everything seems to have gone wrong and all you've been doing is putting in your grocery cart, you've been putting all those negative things in there. And you've got a ton of things that you can count and say, this, you're more likely to do something negative and, like you said, stuff your face. Think about this. I would be willing to bet that the times that you've like broken your diet or gone off your exercise routine or some such thing like that, you've been collecting the negative thoughts. So start collecting the positive ones. It's not always easy, and I will be the first one to admit it. At my age, trust me, I've collected a lot of negative thoughts in my life. But I'm also coming from a perspective that I recognize that when you start collecting and looking at the positive thoughts and thinking positively, positive things are more likely to happen. Notice what I said, more likely to happen because you're noticing them. Because in a sense, I kind of have the tendency to think that we've got the negatives and the positives, they all happen every day, negative thoughts, bad thoughts, but it's the ones we pay attention to that gets through our heads. And if we remember the positive thoughts and say, I had a really good day today because this happened, this happened, this happened, and this happened, you're more likely to continue doing positive things. You might, if you look at the negative things, the same things, you're just not paying attention to them because you're looking at the positive things, you're not as likely to do something more hurtful to you or a poor decision or a more negative decision. Does this make sense? So I'm going to just suggest this week, today, tomorrow, whatever, next 30 minutes, when something happens and you start having two options, take a look and say, okay, things are going to be better than I think they are. It's working out much better than I expected, or something positive about it. Now, granted, sometimes it's difficult to do this, and I admit it. There have been times I've left classes, taken a deep breath, and the best thing I can come up with was, well, at least that class is over and I don't have to do it again. Still positive. Wasn't a really good experience, but I'm still turning that into something that's going to, start that one again. It's still better than coming around and basically thinking about how bad it was and going over every single thing that happened and everything that went wrong. And that's not going to get me anywhere. That won't get anybody else anywhere either when you start going ruminating over all those negative things. I hope this makes sense. So I'll repeat it again because I think it's worthwhile. Once you replace the negative thoughts with positive ones, you start getting you start getting positive results. So to see how many positive results you can come for the rest of the day or tomorrow, depending on the time of day you see this. Let me know what you think about that. If you want to just start clicking them off on a little piece of paper, you might be surprised at what you come up with. So I hope this was helpful and let me know how it goes. And we will chat with you later at some point and see what you think. Let me know what you think about my hair. Okay. Take care. Bye.